Hi everybody, it's Latsab from TechPB again. Most people will know that I really like the Infinity Legend. So sorry about that. I don't really usually do this. I'm hoping everything's showing up fine. So yeah, I really like the Infinity Legend, and I get questions about it all the time. So between it and the Quest, they're probably my two favorite guns, especially as far as value goes. Uh, so I figured I'd do a quick walkthrough on it. I've had it for about a year and a half now. It's never failed me. It's never had any problems. The thing's completely unkillable, which is really the reason that I always suggest it to people. And, you know, stack tube poppets in general are really reliable, but the Infinity Legend's just, as far as I'm concerned, as good as it gets for any, I want to say modern electro, but probably any electro period. Of any gun out there, it's the easiest to maintain, fully maintain, obviously. Some people are going to probably say autocockers or whatever. Just spray something in the ASA and try fire it a couple times and you're good to go, and that's fine until you actually need to work on the rest. Everyday maintenance on this thing, there is no such thing. When you take maintenance on it, it is extremely rare, and it's one of the great qualities of the Infinity Legend that I'm constantly talking to people about is the fact that you got the bolt here. I'm not sure how well you can see, but it has no O-rings on it, absolutely none. It's made out of Delrin, so you do not use lube on it at all. So bolt maintenance, there isn't any. So that thing you don't need to worry about at all. There's absolutely nothing that you'll ever do to this bolt. You don't want lube on it at all. It could make the Delrin swell. Just don't touch it. I'm not sure how well you can see it. I'm really hoping the lighting's okay too, because like I said, I've never really done this before. Something I want to get started with on the guns that I get in, but this will be my first. So anyway, this bolt, it's a little bit scratched up. It doesn't affect performance at all. The Legend has really great tolerances on it. Some people would actually say that makes it a less refined gun, and probably, yeah, to be honest with you, because it has tolerances that are very forgiving. I guess it makes it a less specific, a little bit less, obviously a little bit more tolerant gun. It can deal with some scratches. It can deal with some problems on its bolts, on the bolt and the rammer, and it still performs fine. You would think that you'd have not really great efficiency due to the O-ringless bolt, but it's good enough. I mean, I get it like 1,400 to 1,500 shots off of it. It's not a Bob-Long Vice, but it is definitely, it's pretty decent for a poppet. Like I said, nothing amazing, but still pretty good. It's in the same area as the E-Tech 3. If you put a Rhino spring in it, you can drop down the operating pressure by about 50 psi. Makes it a little bit more efficient, makes it a good amount smoother and quieter. You don't feel the spring vibration as much, and I have a Rhino spring in this one. I might, on a good day, get 1,600 shots out of it with an overbore. I could get better out of it with an underbore, obviously. But yeah, so I mean, the efficiency's still not bad, especially considering there's absolutely no O-rings on this bolt. There's only one moving O-ring in the entire gun, and that is right here in the on the rammer. It has a bumper O-ring as well, which I don't even know how you'd mess up a bumper O-ring. So I would assume that would either never be replaced or be replaced, once every never. So it's really just not. It's not a gun that you're going to need to take care of or anything. It is I would say the best backup gun that you could possibly have. Obviously if you're on a budget or whatever else, it makes a great primary gun, but I think where this gun really shines is as a secondary backup gun, because even the Egos are great, they're solid, they're reliable. There are still things that could be wrong with an Ego. People will say QEVs on the 5, 6, 7, and 8, specifically the 7 and 8s, but those aren't really a huge problem. It's not that often that those need to be replaced. But obviously, when they need to be replaced is problematic, especially if you don't have any with you. The Legend has a QEV in it. I've never heard of anybody with a problem on that QEV. It does not have the diaphragms that need to be replaced, like with the 7 and 8, the Ego 7 and 8. So, I mean, it's just not anything that can go wrong with this gun. It only has one possible O-ring that you could be blowing. The regulator is a CP reg. It's just the old style CP regs. They're consistent. They're easy to work on. They're as reliable as they get, I would assume. I've never had a problem with any CP reg that I've ever owned. And it's, you know, everything about the gun just works. The only thing with the Legend is these eye screws, the eye cover plate screws, are known to strip out if you're not careful with them. The main problem I see with a lot of people that have stripped out eye covers is they didn't have an Allen key that was the right size. They tried to use one that was just a little bit smaller, and then they stripped it, and then they screwed themselves. But again, that's obviously user error. So anyway, I get into working on the gun a little bit in this video. A couple things before I get started. This is not the stock trigger. This is the blade trigger. Where are we? Shit. There we go. This is the blade trigger. It's not as good as the stock trigger. The guy that I bought this from obviously had a CCU kit put on this thing, or whatever their version of the CCU kit's called. So that's why it has red accents everywhere, which is really a shame because, you know, typically the stock trigger would be much more at an angle, almost like this. You know, it would be way out here at an angle, which made it just absolutely amazing for semi-play. I've used a couple of them. I've never, unfortunately, owned a Legend that had the stock trigger, which is, you know, kind of a downer. This trigger still works. It's not my favorite. I've thought about trying to buy a stock trigger off of somebody, but it's just never really been a problem. It's technically the wife's gun. She'll probably slap me if I don't mention that in this video, so I gotta say it at least once. It's the wife's gun. Used to be mine. Lost a bet, so she got the gun, which is unfortunate. But it's really a gun that'll never be sold. We've discussed selling it before, and I just can't bring myself to do it because the thing's unkillable. The thing's a big block of metal. It's a little bit on the heavy side. I think with the stock barrel, it's coming in at something like 2 pounds, 11 ounces, or maybe slightly under that. It's not crippling heavy, but I mean, you're definitely going to notice it's a heavier gun than the modern Electros that are out right now. But the reason for that is all this extra metal. It is not a very milled gun. Try to get this in here. There is not too much milling on it. I think it's still, you know, all considering, I still think it's a good looking gun. It's nothing fancy, but I still think it's a decent looking gun for what it is. You know, it's not some old ass Impulse or anything like that, or the shoebox shockers or something. So I think it's a decent looking gun. The extra metal that's on it gives it extra weight, but it also, I mean, you feel in your hands that there's no way you're going to break this gun. It's not only a robust gun, but it's a gun that you're both, you know, you're just going to psychologically know you're not going to break it because the thing is a tank. It's like a lot of people used to discuss with the Ego 5s and the Ego 6 that, you know, those things were tanks and stuff. This is a tank. Lots of metal, nothing that can go wrong with it, and just an overall perfect backup gun. Anybody that's thinking about trying to get a stack tube poppet for backup, just something they want to throw in their gear bag and not worry about, this is the gun. They're $350, brand new. I see them all the time used for like 220, maybe 250. And you just can't beat it. I mean, Timmy's are great, Egos are great, whatever else. You will not beat the reliability and the ease of use of the Legend on any gun that I've ever found. And it's just perfect for that purpose of just being hands off, shoot it, thousands and thousands and thousands of times, shove it in your bag, come back in 6 months, it's still working fine. This gun has not been lubed since the 4th of July of last year. I've only lubed the gun one time. I used some hater sauce, if I remember correctly, and the thing still shoots phenomenal. It's zero problems with this gun. I've discussed relubing this thing before, and I've decided that I'm just not going to, simply for the fact that I want to see how long it's going to go. We're rolling up on, what is it? It's like a year and almost 3 months now of the exact same lube in it. Sits in my closet a lot, sits in the gear bag. Used it several times now, most recently about a month ago, and it shot phenomenal. I actually used it over my NT11 back when I had the NT11, because the NT11 was giving me problems. This thing never gives me problems. So anyway, I'll get into the gun. The CP reg that's on, or ASA that's on this, is not stock. It does not come with an on-off ASA stock, but the CP one is nothing fancy. This CP reg is just a typical CP reg. It is the original type that would come on it, but not the original reg, because he bought one that would match the CCU kit. So I will get started. Already talked about the bolt. There's nothing else to say about this bolt, really. It's just your typical, pop pin. One thing I do like with it is, with Egos and some of the other stack tube poppets, if you accidentally yank up too hard on that pin, and this pin comes all the way out, in the back, you have that little bullet and the spring that hold, that the pin actually pops in and off of. If you yank this thing up, that thing goes shooting out, and you're hoping that you can find it again. With the Legend, if you can see it here, I'm not sure if you can. There's like a little, almost like a little plug. It's a little Allen key, like a hexagonal screw plug that they put in it. So it's not going to go flying out. You don't have to worry about yanking this thing too hard and losing your pieces out in the field or anything like that. It's completely contained, which I think is great. Again, this is all about, you can't screw it up. If you mess up the Legend, I don't even know what to say to you, because the thing is just so simple, and it's made to just work unconditionally. So anyway, it's not like a typical gun that has a hex slot here for getting out the rammer. You have to take out, or not take completely out, but there's a little screw here that you're gonna have to remove. Let's see if I can get the right size here. You do not need to completely remove it. I believe it's 4 or 4.5 turns. And I'm going to try to do it closer to the camera here, so that you can kind of see. If you just watch the back cap, you'll know when this thing is ready to be pulled out, because it kind of pushes back a little bit. Because obviously this gun is a phaser. It's still not there. It's a phaser, so it has the spring in it that actually returns the gun, or the the rammer. So that spring gives a little bit of tension backwards, and it actually pushes against the cap. So when you get there, it'll usually pop out a little bit. I think I'm still just not quite done with the screw. There we go. So out comes that. So first thing you'll notice, this is the back cap. It has 3 O-rings on it. They do not move. There should be absolutely no reason to ever have to replace those O-rings unless you somehow slice it when you're removing it. But everything moves really smooth, and there's nothing to catch it on. There's no lip on the gun, nothing like that. Nothing on the inside here. It's just hollow, because the only moving O-ring on this gun is sitting here on the tip there. So that would drop in like that, and it just moves on that one O-ring in here. This here is the bumper O-ring that I was discussing. As I said, I don't know how you would possibly mess up that O-ring, so that thing basically doesn't need to be replaced. This is obviously V2 parts. You can tell because it has this little cone on it. So yeah, that's all there is to this rammer system. I'd re-lube, but like I said, I'm just going to leave it and see how long this thing will last. Typically all you would do is add a little bit of lube here, smear it around, and then a little bit on the shaft here so that it smooths or slides nicely. And then I would put a little bit on the O-rings here and then just work it up and down. Obviously nothing technical at all. So I'll set that aside. So that would be your basic. There we go. I forgot about this, the spring here. That would be your basic maintenance that you'd have to do. I've been told by people that they like to re-lube the rammer every 5 cases, but in my experience, from all the shooting I've done with it, I've got to be at least on case 7 or 8 on this hater sauce that I've put on, and I'm having absolutely no problems with the gun. It's still consistent, still shooting well. So yeah, I would not replace lube until you're having problems, to be honest with you, unless you just really, really feel like changing lube for whatever reason. Next, with the feed neck here, I have the lever locking clamping. That does not come stock. You would have to buy this little headlock piece separate, but it does come with a clamping feed neck. It's just that you need to use, you know, the Allen key to tighten it up. One thing that I also like with this design, is this the right size? No, of course it isn't. Is they don't have the feed neck actually screw into the body itself. Most guns have it machined into the body. That there's some threads. Oh, jeez. There's some threads that you would screw a feed neck into. That's not the way it is with this gun. All it is, you pull it straight up. A little bit dirty here, but it's just they've actually milled the gun with this on there. So this is a solid piece attached to the solid body. So there's no way you're going to snap off that feed neck or the connection piece for the feed neck. So you have a completely independent feed neck section here, which just slides right on and right off. So if you ever break this feed neck, easy to get on and off. There's no lip that keeps it on, and there's no O-ring in there. Not sure how well you can see. There's no O-ring in there that keeps it snug. A lot of people have thought that that might have some issues with possibly coming off if you don't tighten it down well enough. I've never had any problems. It tightens down really easy, actually. I would say that you can quite easily over tighten it, but it's really, really solid. So again, great design. You don't have to worry about snapping a feed neck off and then you're left screwed because you have to find out how you're going to get those, how to get it unscrewed without a feed neck on there. Next, good question. What do I want to do next? I'll do reg next. So you don't need to snug down the reg. I know a lot of people that snug them down. There's absolutely no reason to unless you want to fight it later. These individual parts, I'm sure a lot of people know how to already maintain a CP reg. Mike's got a great video on it, but I'm going to do just a quick walkthrough on it as well. So this is the bottom piece. There we go. Again, you don't need to snug them down, or else you're just going to end up making it harder work on yourself. Top section doesn't have anything. This has a plug on both sides that you could have. Technically, you put your macro line in through. Oh, I'm sorry, you put a gauge on these if you wanted to. There's not really any reason. You don't have an LPR on this gun, so the only reason would be to see what your pressure is on that's coming in through or after the regulator. So if you want to know if it was 220 going in, or especially if you're going from a stock spring to a Rhino spring, you might want to see how much pressure you're actually dropping on that. Other than that, there's nothing to do here. There's an O-ring that is just for keeping this the midsection snug to it, and then one that goes in the top for when it's going into the front block. Put some lube on there if you want. I'm not going to. Remember, this is just going to be a quick walkthrough. This is going to be your shim stack. If you just press on the top there, it'll be sticking up just a little bit. And I take an Allen key and just kind of push it down here. Helps if you don't use the ball section. There we go. So it's just your typical shim stack. It has got, what is that, 6 shims in it total, and then the 1 O-ring here. Not complicated at all. You're gonna, like I said, I'm just gonna do a quick walkthrough on this thing. You're gonna have the first shim that's gonna be at the bottom this way, and then that way, and then that way, and then that way, and that way, and that way. If that makes any sense to anybody. So they're basically curved, kind of concave. You're gonna want it to face this way to begin with, you know, towards the section with the O-ring, and then the next 2 are going to be facing each other this way, and then the next 2 are going to be like this, and then the last one is going to be like that. So you're going to end up with 2 like this on the end, and then 2 pairs like this in the middle. So now that I've dropped my shims everywhere, got 1 shim already facing that way, go with 1 facing that way, that one in, out, in, and then out. So just set your shims up like that. Typically you put on a little bit of lube and stuff. Not going to redo it because, like I said, want to see how long the gun will go. When you're done with that, you just stick this thing into the open hole, and then you just kind of line it up. There's a hole here. You can just kind of look in, and you'll see this kind of like silver metallic looking piston tube. And then you just kind of line it up and shove it up, and it'll kind of stick out just a little bit. So that would be, you know, your entire shim stack. This piece here is your regulator seat, and then here is your velocity adjustment. So you take an Allen key, like if you were going to adjust your pressure. That's the wrong size, of course. There we go. You're going to want to turn it all the way in, so tighten it. That's clockwise, by the way. When that piece is tightened, take a pair of needle nose pliers, and you grab around the reg seat. Should come out nice and easy, like that. Drop it off, and then your adjustment screw is actually pinning a little ball bearing in there. Again, I don't know how well this can be seen, but anyway, there's a ball bearing in there being trapped by the pin right now. So now take your, I got the wrong size again. Man, I'm unlucky. Take your, or go with the velocity adjustment, screw it out a little bit, and then you get your little ball bearing here. I like to have a little bit of grease on that, so if you are cleaning it out, I would suggest, you know, getting a Q-tip in there and just kind of Q-tip out the inside. Where are we? God damn it. There we go. Q-tip out the inside, get all the grease up. And then put just a little bit of grease on the ball bearing and drop it back in. It can just roll around there. There's nothing special about that whatsoever. Clean off this piece, you know, the regulator seat. Make sure that it's not too indented on that. Never had a problem with it on these regulators, but I would assume that it could be too much of an indent, similar to what happens fairly often with the Hyper 3s and stuff. So you have this little cut out section here, and it's a little bit ramped. The larger section of the mouth is going to go towards the adjustment screw. So just kind of roll just hold it like this so that the adjustment screw is facing downwards, and then you're going to put the big section of the mouth towards the adjustment screw. There we go. And if you're able to push it to the same spot that it was before, where it's just sticking a little bit up. If you can get it there, you're in good shape. Because that little ramp that's on it, as you tighten down this screw, it pushes that ball, pushes that ball up the ramp, and that's actually what adjusts the pressure to it. So I'm going to take it all the way in, and then I believe it's 2.5 turns out for what I had it at. 1, 2.5. So yeah, that's the entire HPR on this thing. Just screw this thing back in, and then screw these two together. So that's the HPR on this. Very simple. It's not my favorite HPR, but it's definitely one that's easy to work on, so I like working on it. And the thing that I really love about CP regs is they're dirt cheap and you can find them everywhere. So I do not feel bad at all about destroying this reg. And it's just a general feeling on the entire Legend. I don't, you know, a lot of my guns I get in, I don't want to mess them up. I don't want to scratch them. I'm constantly worried about damaging them every single time I need to open a reg. Especially if I need to get tools around it, I'm afraid that I'm going to mess up the ammo. It's just something I don't worry about on the Legend, and especially not on a CP reg. I could just tear this thing to shit, and then, you know, if I needed to resell the gun, it's like 30 bucks. And I'm sure that nobody would really even care if your CP reg was scratched up. So, just something I love about them. They're cheap and they're everywhere. Next, let's see here. I'll just open up the eye covers here. Again, make sure that you've got the right size for the eye covers with your Allen key, or else you will strip these things out. You do not want a size that's too small, or else you're just going to screw yourself. So here we go. Pop that off. I'd also suggest against using the ball section of it. I use the ball section now, but I always feel like, you know, I've stripped more screws with the ball end of a section on smaller screws than I have with your typical Allen key fit. So it's just the one screw. It comes right out. Get the detent out of there. This is just your standard. Your standard. Your standard finger detents. Some people call them spider detents. I'm assuming that's actually what they originally were. It's the same as the Intimidators use, or at least used. I don't remember what they use now. It's the same as Egos use and such like that, so you can really just use any of those type of detents. So Timmy detents, Ego detents, Spider detents, it really doesn't matter. So it's really easy to get detents for this thing. Eyes are eyes. I don't see any reason on pulling that out and making a fuss about it. So, get the plate back on. Again, or not again, but yeah. It has a nice trench here, and it doesn't fit that flush with this cover, which some people don't find aesthetically pleasing. But the plus side is you basically have no chance of pinching your eye wires with this thing. It would be really, really, really difficult for you to somehow damage your eye wires while working on that. I don't know how you would do it. This video is getting a little bit long, so I'm going to have to speed it up a bit. As everybody that's seen my staff introduction video knows, get a bit chatty. So anyway, I'm going to open up the frame here. You got two screws, one in the front, and then one back where the, you know, where you originally took out the rammer cap. So that one's already a bit loose. I always hate these ones. Especially when your hands are covered in hater sauce. There we go. So, you have your solenoid, which actually goes into the grip frame here. So it is a vertical standing solenoid. This is your QEV with a very short hose on barbs that goes to the noid. And then you have the longer hose, which comes up here to your front block. Not really much that can go wrong in here. The only wires up here are the eye wires, and they're completely separate, so they disconnect right here. So it's just, you know, the eyes themselves just have a very short wire that goes right here. They both connect inside the section between the frame and the body, and then the continuation goes on to the actual plug to the board, which I also think is a nice design. Nothing you really need to take apart here. I'm going to quickly pop off the front block. I believe it's this size. Of course not. I would not be that lucky. I'm going to grab the wrong size Allen key for everything in this video. There we go. So, right here you have where it attaches the front block with the air, and then right next to it is a you can see it is a little screw plug. So get your Allen key in there. Some of them are tightened down pretty hard. This one wasn't. So get that little screw out, all the way out. And now your front block is free. Depending on how they've done your auto cocker hose on this, you might actually need to remove it from the barb. Mine, I believe, is actually just loose enough to get the front block out. It has an O-ring right here. Not anything I would worry about unless you mess it up when you're getting in and out of the gun. But yeah, front block comes out nice and easy. Inside here, you're not going to be able to see it, are you? Of course not. Okay, well inside there is your poppet and your spring, which I'll just pop out. There we go. And then, it's a clean shot straight through the gun here. That's the only part that's going to be coming out of there. You have your actual poppet valve here, and then the little spring. Here we are. Where are you? There we go. A little spring, conical spring here. No work that needs to be done to this. Doesn't require lube or anything like that. So you just push the small end there onto your poppet valve, and then that gets dropped right in the back. There we go. What am I doing? Not through the back, through the front. There we go. So when you have that in, that's basically all that was. I was just showing you how you get to your poppet and what's in there. There should be no real reason to get to it unless you've somehow damaged your poppet, which I don't see how you'd manage. So now you just slide this thing back in. There we go. Front block gets in. Put your screw back in. Was this one correct? There we go. So what you're going to need to do, that front block never wants to stay all the way back, so it'll kind of push forward a little bit, especially as you start to monkey around. So what I do is I just get that screw started, and then I press the front block into place while I tighten the screw in, just so I don't have to screw around with it. Once that's screwed all the way in, which takes a million turns here, tighten it down, snug but not too snug, and that's everything that's inside this gun. So that's a complete strip of this gun. There we go. Very difficult to pinch wires in it. Again, I just like the simplicity of everything. With the two frame screws, you'll notice that there's one long and then one that's shorter. The longer one is obviously the one that's going to go in the back because that's the one that needs to hold the rammer cap in place. So you take a shorter screw, stick this in there, wrong size as usual, and tighten her down. Hopefully I've hit the hole. And somebody, I'm sure, is going to say that's what she said. And there we go. Get it nice and snug. Last things to go over. I'll quickly open up the grips here. That's right. The Exalt keys, if you have a set of Exalt keys, do not fit the grip frame screws. This is not something special to the Legend. I've had a problem with it with tons of guns, and I don't know why they don't have a size that fits. I don't even know what size this is. I lucked out. There was like a bucket full of tools at work, and I just started grabbing them until I found one, and no idea what size it is, but Exalt does not have a Allen key that actually fits grip screws on this or on several other guns that I've owned. So get this opened up. They are just panel grips. Something that I really like about these panel grips is it has a lot of raised texture, and due to that, you get a lot better grip on them because of how they just bend in and give you more surface area when you're gripping it. The downside of that is that it's a raised texture, and they just cake up with mud and shit, and you're going to have to get in there with a toothbrush or something. I do that with any of my guns, but you're really going to need to go to town on this thing to get those grips cleaned out. Anyway, we are now in the grip frame here. You can see your solenoid sticking down. Like I said, it's a vertical mount. You got your wires here, battery sits there, and here's the board. Not a lot going on there. I have a spare board here, which I'm going to quickly talk about. The boards on these guns are very small, which is actually kind of nice. There's not really a lot going on it. This right here is what all your wires plug into, and this is another a design that has both goods and bads. Your battery harness and all that. Typically, on a lot of guns, you have a battery harness, and then you have your eye harness, and then you have the solenoid wires. And it's not the way it works with this gun. And then obviously your damn it, your micro switch. And all of that would be going to this. That is not the way this works. It's one piece. It plugs in as just one modular unit, and then that battery harness is, a battery harness, the eye wires, the solenoid wires, everything, all in one plug. So you don't have the multiple things you need to pull out, which is really great. You just unplug everything at once, which I think is an awesome design. The problem with that design is if you rip an eye wire, or if you rip a solenoid wire or whatever else, you've screwed everything. And you have to buy a completely new unit. They're not that expensive. I think that Infinity sells them for $15. I'd have to double check that price, but I think it was 15, maybe 20 bucks, and that's not a bad price. But thank God the board's small. It fits nicely in the frame due to its size. So I think it was a good design overall, if you ask me, but one that has not been used in any other guns. Apparently nobody else is agreeing with it. To save time on the video, I'm not going to get the gun fully closed up. I am going to do the rammer because it's so easy to screw this up. Actually, I don't consider that easy, but a lot of people manage. Obviously, this ram cap is held in place by the screw. And the screw does not just tighten into metal, it actually has a little hole here that it's going to screw into. So when you are sliding this in, you need to make sure that this hole here is lining up with that hole there. That way when you get this thing in and you're putting in the screw, you don't mess things up. You can probably see on mine, I can get the damn thing back out. I've scratched the shit out of this thing, and so is the previous owner, right on top of the O-ring and everything else. Because like I said, when you have the spring on there, it tends to kind of like push this thing out. So if you don't hold it in place, you end up going in the wrong spot. Never had a problem. If you damage this O-ring, it could cause a leak because this is where the air is going to come in and actually drive the ram. So that could be a problem. But I mean, I've hit this O-ring so many times I can't count. Never had a problem. Scratched the shit out of the metal and messed up the ano. Had no problems ever. Quickly talk about the springs. This here is the Rhino spring. This here is the stock spring. I get asked all the time, how can I tell if I have a Rhino spring or if I have a stock spring? That's a good question. You need both. It's going to be very, very, very difficult for you to tell which one it is if you don't have something to compare it to. Try to get these things lined up here. The Rhino spring is slightly longer. I'm not sure how well you can see. Does this thing zoom in any further? No, of course not. It's maybe, talking metric here, it's, a couple millimeters, maybe 3 millimeters longer. And it's not as thick of a metal on the spring. So if I get this as close as I can here. You can see that obviously the stock spring is a thicker metal, whereas the Rhino is thinner. So, yeah. So anyway, get the Rhino spring back in, get this thing lined up correctly. There we go. And then you would just get the screw in. And once again, not going to get it assembled. This thing's already running really, really long, and I'm probably going to have to chop the video down a bit. So that's the Infinity Legend. Thing shoots flawless. I've never had a problem with it. Still, to this day, don't see myself up for selling it because of how good this gun actually performs for its price. And generally just really, really happy with the gun. They're $350 brand new from Infinity's website. Comes with the upgraded Tadao board that's got all the modes and stuff that you'd ever want. It's got all the Tadao software. Doesn't have a screen, obviously, but I mean, it's a Tadao board. They are coming with ASAs, but not on-off ASAs. They're coming with clamping feed nets, but not lever locking feed necks. They are coming with bolts, but not ones with a pillow bolt. Blah, blah, blah. They're coming with V2 parts, which are the good parts, and that's the Legend. Thanks.